You're just standing on the cusp of what's okay and not morally gray, textbook insane. Now I'd like to draw this line.
What do we got there? Welcome D Right. As you people are just getting started here, people probably will doom scroll away since you see the 0, but we're just getting started. So if you're new to the channel, thanks for watching TK Civics. This is not going to be boring. It's certainly going to be interesting, as you can see by the prompt, and it's going to be a short live today. But I wanted to jump on at least a little bit in case I can't jump on later. So thanks everybody for scrolling by. I hope you stay for a few minutes, read the prompt, because if you know anything about this account and TK Civics, my goal is to make sure that we eliminate the corruption of special interests, billionaires, corporations, lobbyists from our political system. And people will say that's impossible, it's too late. It is not too late. It can certainly happen. But let's be frank, we need a lot of people to support something, and it has nothing to do with left versus right. Sure don't want a ruling a thing? Absolutely you're not, right? Carl Gold? But what are we going to do? We're just going to capitulate, or are we just going to sit on our asses? We're going to take our heads out of the sand, take our heads out of our asses, and actually do something about it. Because I have a plan. If you're new to the channel, I have a plan to do exactly that. You can see it up there. So I hope people will tune in as we're just getting started here. So hang out for about 30 minutes if you want. And I hope to see more people here as we're just getting this live started. Are we going to allow billionaires and special interests to rule us? Because that's where we know this is headed. And I'm going to expand on that in case you're not familiar with the corporate monarchy of the Silicon Valley billionaires that are trying to completely, because they've already grabbed a pretty good hold of our democracy, but are they going to turn it into a full corporatocracy or a plutocracy? Those words take a while to learn how to say clearly. So in case you're not familiar, a corporatocracy is a democracy that's basically more like ruled by corporations. So it's more of a democracy for corporations. And a plutocracy is a system that's ruled by the few. So very similar there. So I hope you guys stick around as more people, as the live's just getting started and this gets out to more people. I'm not going to be on that long today. I think I'm going to make this short and sweet. And if you want to jump into the box and answer this question, we can have a discussion about it. So hit the pink and blue silhouette if you have some thoughts on this, and we can have a short discussion, probably give everybody 2 minutes to talk about, are we just going to sit on our asses or are we going to do something about it? It's really not that difficult, people. It's going to take a whole bunch of people. 50 to 70 million people. It actually could be quite a bit less. Refiguring the math, it could be less. But 50 to 70 million people changes everything if we want to do that. So we're going to take the first guest since this is going to be a short live. And we're going to have crazy something or another. Crazy Veggies. Love that username. Welcome, Crazy Veggies.
Yeah, what's going on?
Good, man.
So
welcome.
What's the topic?
So are we going to allow billionaires and special interests to rule us? And do we want to take back our government, or are we going to sit there and capitulate?
Hey, like if you got a solution for, the billionaires other than like lawless action, then I'm all for it, man.
Absolutely. Not about lawless action. Absolutely about nonviolence. There's a way to do it. Do you have any idea how much the billionaires are stealing just not by paying their fair share of taxes alone? A year, like how much if billionaires were paying if corporations were paying 30% of the taxes of the tax revenue generated each year, like they used to do, and billionaires didn't have the loopholes and had to pay the same percentage of taxes on their income and assets like we do, how much extra do you think the United States would be generating? Just take a wild guess if you have no clue. It's okay. Just throw a number out there.
Well, I don't know. I did actually do the math one time for UBI, and the money's there. I know that. So I don't know, maybe like 500 billion.
All right, not a bad guess. I'd say it's a pretty solid guess. No, it's 2 to 3 trillion.
Oh,
It's
2 to 3 trillion.
yeah. Well,
Okay.
I
See,
know.
I only did the top 1% when I did my UBI calc. So
Yeah, that wasn't with corporations probably included. So corporations pay 8% of
right.
the corporate tax burden today. It used to be 30%, and the high.
Wow. So you know what that means, right? That means that even like without the corporations, then UBI still works. So like literally, if you just add the corporations in there, I didn't do that.
Yeah,
Wow, they have access funds. Wow, man. And that
look
was
at
literally for like I think like 1,200 a month. Just that would be the UBI for anyone that was below like I think like like 25 like the 400% of the poverty level or whatever it was. I forget which one it was. It was something like that.
oh,
But yeah.
interesting. Yeah, I mean, we're not saying like, hey, we need to tax at a rate that they haven't been. There were rich people and rich companies back in the 60s and 70s too. Like, right? This is nothing new. So people always get fearful, like, oh, if you tax them more, then they're going to raise prices. No, 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 that's not how this works. Then there's more competition because they raise their prices. Then you get smaller players. It all works itself out in capitalism. So it's sort of all of this fear factor because we know that corporations very often raise their profit margins, but they never reduce their profit margins, right? They just continue to raise it. So what I find is that
Yeah, that's true.
standing is I call it stealing. When I say there's $2 to $3 trillion a year being stolen by corporations and billionaires because they're not paying the same level of taxes that they used to pay or that they should pay compared to the 92% of Americans that are paying most of the tax burden. So instead of $5 trillion a year in revenue, and I'm not talking about of course we should reduce waste and fraud and all that stuff because we know we're spending too much in certain areas. But instead of $5 trillion coming in revenue, we should have $7 to $8 trillion coming in revenue. And then you could do all kinds of things. You want to pay down the national debt somewhat? You can absolutely do that. You have plenty of money. You want to give everybody universal health care? You absolutely could do that. You want to build infrastructure? You absolutely could do that. There's like almost nothing that we couldn't accomplish with that additional $2 to $3 trillion.
Yeah, for sure, man. I think that's possible. I think UBI and universal health care, that would be like the best thing to happen with it, though. You know what I'm saying? I
I
think it'd
think
be best for the lowest income, right? Like people that are at the poverty level.
because
I think that would be the first step.
that would also be a tax break onto every individual in America because now they wouldn't have to pay that health insurance cost for their corporations. So they'd be making more money.
Yeah, and then like people would have money to spend and they spend the money and
Right.
then that goes into the businesses and that generates more tax.
That's
So that kind of covers the universal health care at the same time as allowing people not to be criminals because they don't have to like be in desperation and rob banks or nothing
right,
stupid like
right.
that,
A lot of people just think people are evil, but lots of times people just in order to survive have to resort to crime. That's kind of what happens, right?
Yeah, it's just poverty. Yeah, if you eliminate poverty, you eliminate like 90% of crime probably.
But we
Maybe not that
can't
high,
do that.
but
We can't afford it. That's always the message.
yeah, that's not true at all.
No.
I mean, you got to think like the corporations take our money, right? The businesses take our money and then they try to hold on to it and not put it back into the economy, right?
That's right.
So that's kind of silly because if you really like, there was a funny meme video of two aliens talking about planet Earth, right? They were like, so wait, you mean they're in $35 trillion in debt? Who do they owe? Themselves? You know what I mean? Like what?
Well, that's a great
It's kind of
topic.
a joke.
Do you know who we actually owe that money to? The 35 trillion? The 36 trillion, I think it is now, or 37, whatever it might be. Because
Yeah, it's going up.
it's actually mostly to ourselves. It's mostly to the
I know, yeah.
Federal Reserve, to our own government, right? I would love to borrow money off myself and not have to pay it back. That'd be pretty cool.
Exactly. Yeah, it's silly. It's weird. It's
Yeah,
like
I thought, a lot of people, you're obviously very knowledgeable. A lot of people would say, well, we owe it to China. No, foreign governments only own about 10 to 15% of all the national debt.
yeah, no, we don't owe them that much at all.
No.
No.
So it's not
It's
like
very silly.
it is silly,
I
right?
really, when I learned that like 10 years ago, I was like flabbergasted. I mean, I
And
don't
it,
know. I think when you realize that, you understand that dude talking about how debt is actually like not a bad thing starts to make sense because then you're like, well, yeah, but that's only if you're like a business though. Like,
right.
it's like if you're a single dude or like you got a family, it's like it's probably not a good idea to take on a whole bunch of debt, you know?
Yeah, and people think debt the wrong way when it comes to government debt. Yes, when you get to too excessive government debt related to the GDP, things can spiral out of control. We're not even close to that spiraling, even though the number sounds ginormous, 36 trillion. If we took the $3 trillion extra we should be bringing in, we could pay it down in 13 years. So if we did, obviously, good budgeting as well. But what people think is, we are the United States has control over the reserve currency of the world, and it's supposed to have debt. People need dollars throughout the world to do trading, so you have to be able to sell dollars, and there's always debt, right? So that's why the value of the dollar, while it can go down at times, relationship to other currencies, it really doesn't go down, right? Our purchasing power goes down. It should go down about 3% a year in a perfect fiat currency world, but it's related to other currencies that are also losing value over time. Our buying power relationship to other currencies and other products around the world doesn't really change that much, even with the amount of debt that we have.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, it is very odd. Things become like cheaper, but we have less buying power.
Yeah.
It's almost like it doesn't matter.
Now, if
Yeah,
you're
like
related to
3% a year
gold,
for 10 years, 30% in 10 years is crazy.
yeah, if you're related to gold or Bitcoin, then yes, the dollar loses value, but that's not, those are asset classes, right? So those are not the right assets to value how you value the dollar's buying power.
Yeah, Bitcoin's definitely, I think there's like 3 trillion in Bitcoin or something like that, or in all crypto,
I think
something like
that's
that.
right.
It's a
Yeah,
lot. I
it's
mean,
a lot.
it's
It
a good
will
amount.
it's going to surpass gold eventually, and it will surpass every other asset, right? It seems like it anyway.
That's the theory, yeah. I'm curious when it runs out though. Like there's only so many Bitcoins, right?
Mr. Global says 3.8. What were we just talking about? Trillion? 3.8
Yeah,
yeah,
billion or trillion, yeah,
trillion dollars.
Bitcoin.
Yeah, thanks, Mr. Global. Thanks for that. Well, when Bitcoin, number one, it's not until 2050 when the last Bitcoin will be minted. And then it doesn't matter that there's a fixed supply because it matters on demand. And of course, there's still mining, right? Mining is the transactions. So it's not like anything's going to happen to it, right? Unless something with computational computing, quantum computing.
Oh yeah, that was what I read. In like 3 years, they said like quantum computing is gonna crack the blockchain and it's gonna be insecure or something.
Well,
What do you think about that?
yeah, it's a little, if you own Bitcoin, that's something that's scary. But if quantum computing can do that, it can do that same thing to any other fiat currency well before it ever has to worry about hacking the blockchain, right? It
True,
makes
yeah.
it's a target. Everything could be a target, right? Assets everywhere on much less secure platforms. So just because it could break it, what does that actually mean? No one knows.
Yeah, I don't think they'll let it loose, right? Like they'll just keep it locked down.
Well,
Because they
let's
already
see
have
about
like
that.
quantum computers. So I mean, if they wanted to, they could probably do it right now.
Yeah.
Just not telling anybody.
Yeah, so that's the question. I mean, this is an issue if we're going to be ruled by billionaires. So if you take the five largest billionaires who are all men, I think they're all white men. Four of them are white men. One is Batar from Sanjay from Google, not, but no, nonetheless, they're all guys. They control a vast majority of wealth in this country. They control the vast majority of all media and social media, and they control the vast majority of AI. That's freaking scary, right? So they know what they're doing or trying to do. They want to have ultimate rule and control the narrative, control the money, control the narrative, and control AI, right? Like you talk about, a trifecta of full control. That's essentially it.
Yeah, it's a monopoly. They have a monopoly at this point.
Yeah, there's nothing that they can't buy. There's nobody that they can't buy other than the masses of people. Like that's the only thing. That's why I have this prompt there that if there's 50 to 70 million people that want to, and this would apply to red or left, right? So right or left, whatever it might be, MAGA or liberal, this applies. So if you have enough people that want to say enough with the bullshit, there needs to be no corruption in government, no big money corruption in government. So you cannot buy elections. Elections need to be publicly funded. If enough people just came together and said, that's it, let's make sure we at least do that, that would solve about 70% of probably every problem that we have.
Yeah, I think what was it, Elon Musk kind of like lobbied for Trump. What did he spend? Like 300 million or
Yeah, I
something
think
like
it was
that?
400 million. Ranges between 200 and 400 million are the numbers.
Yeah, I mean that's kind of insane. And there was like a loophole, I guess, right, where he had like
Well, ever
got
since
around.
Citizens United, there, you can basically contribute as much as you want to a super PAC. So I don't know if he contributed to his own super PAC and just donated it directly to the Republican Party or, to Trump himself. Thanks for
Yeah, that
thanks for
is
the rose,
really
John.
wild. I mean, that should be there needs to be maybe an amendment done or
So
something.
this is your first time on my live, isn't it?
Talking about me?
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I just literally yeah, it's
Oh,
first time.
it's funny. So you see how naturally that came to you, that idea? Like it just like, oh, maybe there should be an amendment. It's not too complicated, right? You figured that out pretty quickly, right?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, the Constitution can be amended, right?
Right. Are you Gen Z or millennial? Where are you?
No, I'm 32,
Oh, so you're millennial.
so I
Okay, so
guess I'm
you're
like
young millennial.
millennial.
Oh,
Yeah,
interesting.
I'm like Gen Z, Zennial.
Yeah, so for the few people that are watching, the 16, 17 watching, like you just said, that's the two things. There needs to be a 28th and 29th Amendment. That's if you look at this plan that I have this links, it might be blocked, but it's tinyurl.com/TK Civics Plan. I'm not just here talking about problems. I actually have a very clear solution. And like you immediately picked up on, the 28th Amendment needs to be that all elections need to be publicly funded by individuals, human beings, and not some artificial entity like corporations and so forth. And then the 29th Amendment needs to be that being a politician cannot be a career, that it needs to be a temporary civic service, and that means term limits. If you can implement those two things, which again are across the red and blue spectrum, you essentially put in place that you bring representation back to society, and then those representatives can start working together on compromising on literally every single other issue, because their only mandate is then to represent all of their constituents. And then they would not be manipulated anymore by money, because you'd obviously have laws to protect that they can't enrich themselves while they're being temporary civic servants. They have to go to office. They can't enrich themselves. They can't stock trade and all those other types of things.
Yeah, that's been floating around for I think like over a decade. I mean, it's been around. I've heard people say that, like that term limits, and I don't know maybe as much as the other amendment, but yeah, I think that's like the only way to do it, right? Because this is a constitutional republic, and we do elect our like representatives. That's about the only democratic thing about the country. And the problem is with that, because you can essentially like gerrymander and you can like pay for politicians
Mm-hmm.
instead of like directly actually having the public and citizens vote for them. So yeah, if you solve that issue with democracy in America, then yeah, you kind of essentially give all the power back to the people.
Right,
So yeah,
right.
I
Yeah,
agree with that.
court reform would definitely need to be something that has to happen, and like and gerrymandering would have to be tackled. But court reform, but essentially those two amendments, you could add on to things, whatever it might be. But then like you said, you kind of fix everything. Now, the problem with it that everyone doesn't really realize is that we know that neither party, the blue party or the red party, will ever do those two things, because that takes away their own power, right? They can't even agree to ban stock trading, right? They once in a while they talk about it, but it never happens. They can't agree to having universal federal background checks that 89% of Americans agree with, including NRA and gun owners agree with. And yet these such low-hanging fruit that the vast majority of the public agree with, they won't do. And that's just simply that proves that the red or blue party, no matter if it swings blue next time, it will never happen. So it has to happen that you have to replace all existing career politicians with temporary public servants. And that means a third party or an independent group or taking over an existing party. And people think, no, that can't happen. We're a two-party system. And as you probably know, that is not necessarily true.
Yeah, I mean it's technically not true, yeah. But like practically it's kind of true, right? I mean, it's like what 150 million people or so voted only for those two parties, and then like there's like sub 10 million people voted for like independence or
That's
something
right.
crazy.
But the funny thing is that that's true. But the problem is not so funny thing is that 75 million of those 150 plus million that voted are not registered with either the Democratic or Republican Party. They're independents.
Oh, so it's actually more than that. Okay.
Yeah, the majority of Americans are not registered with either party. Now, that does not mean that they don't align themselves to one party or the other. They lean one way or the other. But for all practical purposes, they consider themselves independents because they do not necessarily want to or need to vote in the Republican or Democratic primaries.
Oh, you're talking about registered. I got you.
Registered.
Yeah, no, for sure. Yeah, and that is interesting. I think it's like what, like 350 million people, some 70 are like kids, and then 70 are like elderly. So like, yeah. I mean, it's like the numbers are really weird when you really think about it. Yeah.
Yeah,
I
we're
don't
just
know.
all mind bent. Like we're all sort of conditioned to think that it could not happen. But you're too young to remember 1992. There was a third party called the Reform Party. Ross Perot was the head of the ticket. He started the campaign relatively late. He was polling at 40% of the votes, and he ended up getting 20 million votes out, I think, out of 110 million. So he had over close to, it was 19% of the vote. So he got 19% of the vote. So he failed, but people don't realize that it could have actually happened then. But most people don't realize, not to say that it almost happened, but it could have happened. It was on its way to happening. But then he withdrew from the race for about 6 weeks in the summer, which was really strange. So he pulled himself out of the race and he pulled the Reform Party out of the race. And then when he re-entered, his polling dropped. He lost an incredible amount of credibility. So it's
Yeah,
an interesting case study that people think, oh, it can't happen. We can't vote other people. No. And then there was Ralph Nader, I think in 2002. That was less effective. But it can't just be a candidate. It can't be one candidate, and it can't just be during an election cycle. It has to start much sooner. You have to build a community and a movement first, and then you can recruit possible political representation once you know you have a large enough movement. That's how I view it anyway. Unless you get this generational freakish leader like a Lincoln or a JFK that stands up and is able to unite the country around something. But we don't see that on the horizon. Thanks for the hearts, by the way, and the badges. That's really helpful to spread the live and to know that what we're talking about is feasible. And it's not that it could happen. It's very binary. It could happen if there's 50 to 70 million people that supported it. It won't happen if there's not. It's really binary. You don't get the people, it doesn't happen. You get enough people to support something, and it certainly could happen and likely would happen.
yeah. I mean, if we just take half and half, from each side of, Republicans and, Democrats, then there it is right there.
Yeah,
Maybe you could find one issue that they kind of all sort of like split with the party on, which I don't know if that's kind of right now. It seems like there's a lot of people switching sides. So it's like, I don't know
yeah.
why people don't kind of try to find a new way to go about it,
And I would say to people, they don't even have to change their vote until there's enough people. Like, there's not like you don't try and convince enough people during an election cycle. You start sooner and you build up because no one wants to throw away their vote. They're going to continue to vote red or blue until they know there's really something viable. So the thing is, you have to just create enough people.
For sure. I mean, if you can get one person who is like a billionaire to like, I don't know, maybe support that and kind of like help with like the message, right? That's kind of the issue, right? Is not enough people are aware of it.
Well,
So you need mass like, propaganda. I'm not gonna say propaganda really, but you know what I mean? You need that information out there.
that's right. You need to really be aggressive. Like, take it for example. I used the Mr. Beast example. May not be the best example, but this guy, Mr. Beast, has 170 million Americans, 350 million people around the world that follow him, right? Let's say, for instance, he actually cared about politics. Let's say he was actually someone who was likable. Let's say he really had his shit together when it came to politics. If an influencer, doesn't have to be a billionaire, maybe he is even a billionaire at this point, who knows? But if any influencer with enough reach said, you know what, instead of just there's Dean Withers and Parker on the left, and then there's these, Ben Shapiro's and the Charlie Kirks and of the past anyway. And, the Joe Rogans of the world, if they were to actually use their platforms, again, you'd have to have someone that actually kind of gives a shit about, truly cares about society and people and understands civics. But you don't have to be a billionaire. You just have to have relevancy. You just have to have reach. If any one of those people truly cared, they would have an opportunity to possibly do something like that.
Oh, for sure, yeah. I always thought that when I first saw like the big streamers coming up, I'm like, these are like president level numbers of people
Yeah.
that they can gather. And
Bigger, right?
that's, you know, yeah, bigger. Yeah, 100%. Because what is it, 70 million? So
Yeah.
like, I mean, there's many YouTubers that have close to,
Mark
you
Rober
know,
has,
tens of million.
yeah, Mark Rober himself has 75 million, and he's
Yeah,
not
that
even,
alone is,
yeah.
I mean, that's interesting.
I
Jeez.
actually say that if anyone could just get to 10 million, like if you get to 1 million, so that's like what I'm trying to do here. It's like if I could even get to 1 million, maybe I'm not the right person. It doesn't matter. If enough people were preaching this, if you get to 1 million, you actually start to have a ripple in the lake. There's some of a wave that starts to form, and you start to get to network effects. And then you get to 10 million. Then it's a wave, and that wave continues to grow into a tidal wave. So you don't actually have to have 50 million. You just have to start somewhere and grow large enough. That's how I view it.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I'm all for it. Like, if they can do it, I'm for it. It's just like you said, people have to do it and fund it. But they have the money, I believe. I mean, it's really down to do they want to trade their money for like a better country or you know what I mean?
Right. Right. Yeah.
So it's like it's hard to tear people away from their money,
Well, once you get
because
fat and happy,
it's
you don't feel like you really need to change because your life is generally in terms of financially, you sound like, oh, I've made it. So you don't really have to dig as hard. But if you looked at a lot of politicians don't come from money, like Bill Clinton didn't come from money and others. They wanted to make the world a better place and they rose to prominency through a populist movement, right? Obama didn't come from money. Reagan did. Bush did. Trump. I don't know about Trump. Hmm.
yeah, that one's pretty obvious, right?
Yeah.
I mean, but yeah, I think that's the issue, right? If instead of say people who are coming from because this is how it was formed, right? The original presidents were all part of the colonialness, like they were part of the people that founded the country.
It's such a great question. It's actually not. And I just looked this up the other day. So out of the founding
Oh, okay.
fathers, how many became presidents? Take a guess. I'm going to give you a hint. Some did, but maybe not as many as you think. How many of the founding fathers, people that helped architecture the Constitution of Declaration of Independence?
Yeah, I mean, you got George Bush, Thomas Jefferson.
George Washington, I think you
Was
meant.
yeah, what did I say?
You said George Bush.
Oh, oh my bad. No, yeah, George Washington. Oh goodness. So there's those, and then you have what was it, Adam? Is there a guy named Adam something?
Yeah,
I'm
like the
really
John
actually not
Adams.
a
Very
history buff
good.
at
No,
all.
I'm impressed.
Yeah, John Adams. Yeah, no, and then you got like
Mr. Global
I'm be
says
honest, that's
four.
it.
Bud271 says four. You guys are close. By the original founding fathers, it's two. It's George Washington and Thomas Jefferson. And then
Oh, okay, cool.
if you expand the founding fathers to like the 50 people that were instrumental in the early days of formation of America, there's five. So only two of the founding fathers, and George Washington did not want to be a president. It was just basically like you're the guy, you need to do it. So he did it. So there's really not that many. Many of them did not become presidents, which was surprising to me as well.
Yeah, interesting. Yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, I always wondered though, like, wouldn't most of the original presidents, like, I'm just talking, like, were they like people who came from either the middle of society or
No,
were they
they were the ruling
people?
class. They were the people, they were the
Yeah, see,
scholars, they were the educated. And that's the
yeah,
thing is they could have put in an oligarchy if they wanted to because they were the most powerful, most influential, most educated people at the time. They didn't have to put in a representative democracy.
right, and that was a good thing to do. But I think something's missing with like the people leading the country, right? Like, if this country's meant for the people, by the people, shouldn't it be the people that are like the most average, sort of like familiar with living in the country, like
I
as
argue
opposed to
that
being
all the
part of like
time.
a
I argue that all
yeah,
the
because
time, right?
they're disconnected.
Right.
Yeah, they're disconnected from what it's like to be an American. So they do policies and things according to what they're told and what they get information from. But most of that is kind of like not. the true like information, right?
Right.
So it's like there's a disconnect.
Some
I mean, it's
people
better nowadays, right?
Some
Than
people have the
all
feeling that we
talking to
need
people.
experienced people in politics. And I always call bullshit on that. It's like, as long as you're knowledgeable, intelligent, and you have like some basis of background, understand geopolitics and the current world order, and you can pass an immigration test, I would much rather have everyday Americans who want to serve in office, who are just willing to learn, and they would make better decisions because they're the same people that had to go to work every day. They had to buy their groceries. They had to pay their mortgage. They had to take their kids to school. They had to do all the things that we have to do. They can relate to society much better.
Yeah, I actually just thought of this. I mean, I've thought of it before, but what if the reason that that's not the case and kind of like, because it's kind of hard to do that, right? Like if you're born in this country, you're middle class, you try to become president. What are the actual chances, right? I mean, oh, are you muted?
Yeah, I was muted for a second. I'm hearing you though.
Oh, yeah, so it's like the chances of that happening are very slim unless you become like an influencer or you get lucky, right? And you build an audience and you have all these things going for you.
Well, the real
And that's
problem
kind of
is
happening right now, right?
right. Well, the real problem is that most incumbents win because of their name recognition. But there are many people. You could take AOC on the left and Marjorie Taylor Greene on the right as two individuals that didn't come from mass amounts of money. I'm not sure about Marjorie, and they just ran for politics. There are many commoners in politics. It just so happens it's really difficult because it's hard to beat incumbents.
True. And isn't like every president practically related? I think there was some girl that did this for like a high school project or middle school project, right? She traced back all of the lineage of the presidents and they're all related to some like king or something in the past. Did you know that?
No, I didn't. I don't know that. And actually, it would make sense because many of them were Protestants of the founding fathers. So the Catholicism, they came from relatively the same areas of the world, their heritage. So by the way, Bud wanted me to mention who are the five: George Washington, John Adams, Thomas Jefferson, James Madison, and James Monroe. Fifth president. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Those are the five. All right. Well, Crazy Veggies, love the username. I just wanted to jump on short. I'm going to come back in about 2 or 3 hours on the same topic. I need to run, and I appreciate you joining me as the first and only guest today. Thanks to everybody else for tuning in. I'll be back in about 2.5 hours, probably on the same topic. So if you guys haven't followed yet, please follow and please read the plan. I can't do anything alone. None of us can. We need people to spread the message, follow, and all the things, because you got to have relevancy first and foremost. So thanks everybody for joining. Thanks Crazy Veggies, and I'll see everybody in a few hours.
For sure.
Cheers.
Appreciate it.